But we're talking about the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and we're talking about something that's, how tall is it? Do you know?
481 feet at its height, which is, I've told this to other people before, but you live in Arizona like me. So you are, of course, familiar with the Chase Tower in downtown, right?
Yeah.
You know, the tallest building in Arizona is the Chase Tower. That I believe is like 483 feet. So we're talking basically identical. So the Great Pyramid would be as tall as the tallest building in all of Arizona, and not to mention 755 feet wide at each of its bases. And so when they talk about like this ramp theory, you would literally, because people have done the math on it, you would literally need more stones or as many that made up the entire pyramid itself, and you extend like a half mile out. Like, because like if you get to a point where like at 10% grade, every physicist, like you're not moving those 70-ton blocks up that. So like, okay, so and this is the consensus. This isn't like Jimmy like guessing. Like this is like, okay, well, how did they do it? 70-ton blocks, more than 120 of them, more than 300 feet up inside the alleged king's chamber and all that. So it's like, okay, so if they did the ramp theory, which isn't, that's not a bad theory at all. Like, it's like, okay, like if they're going to get these stones up there, like a ramp theory is not bad. But then you do the math on it. It's like, well, if they needed more stones or as many as it would take to build up the entire pyramid, well, then where are those stones now? And I could say, well, okay, I use those for the next pyramid. Cool. Okay, but then what? Where are those stones? Like for that, you know what I'm saying? You do it next. And I'm like, yeah, no, nah. I don't know how they did it. And it makes me, I feel proud to say I don't know, because there's a lot of people out there that say, we do know, this is how. And I'm like, okay, well, you can't prove that. So to say, that's not honest.
Also, the outside of the pyramids was smooth and shiny.
Perfect.
Perfectly smooth and shiny. It doesn't look like that now, but it was. And also there were tops to the pyramids. So I'm curious what you think the top was made out of. What do you think the purpose of the temple was? And then also just to like one final piece of like having been there and going through tunnels and the inside of the Great Pyramid, the shafts and the stairs and all the, like everything on the inside was definitely like, I mean, there's no decorations. It looked like it was meant for acoustic purposes. How do they carve that into the stone? How do they plan ahead on that? I think they probably had to have some sort of like not cutting, but like frequency device that had to have been able, you have to go in after. They had to have gone in after. They had to have gone in after to like carve the design or add or something like that. But anyway, give me your synopsis on what the hell the pyramids are all about and what they were used for, and all about the top that doesn't exist anywhere other than there is one. What's that called? There's one top left. I can't remember the name of it right now.
But they haven't. They moved over to the museum and it's black.
The bin.
So of course we were all taught that the pyramids were built to be tombs for the pharaohs. And I really want to emphasize to people that theory did not exist until the latter part of the 1800s. At that period of time, Britain controlled Egypt. They quite literally invaded. They had authority there. A lot of people don't realize that Egypt has been absolutely conquered at least several times. I can think off the top of my head, but like who knows the other lost history there. So I just want people to know that there is absolutely almost no evidence to even suggest that the pyramids were built to be tombs for the pharaohs or anybody. As you were mentioning, besides the fact that there's no decorations, they never found a single mummy in any pyramid ever, which surprises. Every time I tell that to somebody I meet, like, oh, what do I tell them like, I'm talking ancient history and I mention that and they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. The internal structure and layout is so utterly bizarre that to me, I believe that it was functional. I do not think that the pyramids were built to be tombs. And I know that sounds crazy to some people first, because like, well, what is it? What do you mean functional? Like, it's a stack of bricks. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm just sharing what I think. I think it's above us that some people back in time were more advanced than we are today. Although that's not to say that we're not more advanced than them as well. I think that there's just different realities that can exist at any point in time in like if you were to get a bunch of humans and put them on a bunch of different planets and come back however many years later, and assuming they didn't get obliterated by the elements or whatever, and just got a chance to really just thrive, you know what I mean? Like they're fed and they're secure and they're just allowed the human ingenuity to carry on. I bet you each individual civilization would be doing things that the other civilizations wouldn't think possible, and vice versa. That's what I think. I think this is how humans work. And I think that's what happened back in the day. And I suspect that the pyramids were some sort of energy device. And I say that because the Nile River once went right up to it. And when I think of like the largest structures on Earth today, like hydroelectric dams, that's for producing electricity. And when you look at the fact that the Nile River once went right up to the steps, I'm like, and there's a subterranean chamber. Some have philosophized or have suggested that, theorized, I should say, that it channeled water and did something. And I don't know though. Like, what I do know is that I walked through it and knew I was in the presence of greatness, and there was not a single thing about it that to me resembled a tomb. Because I went to the Valley of the Kings, I went through the mastabas all around the Giza Plateau, which are known burial sites, and there's not a single similarity at all, except that those empty sarcophagi boxes inside the alleged king chambers of each. So, okay, maybe there's a few possibilities there. Either they later on were used to be tombs for somebody, which is totally possible, or those boxes were once something else. Like in the king's chamber, it almost seems to me that was something else and then was carved out, because you went in I don't know, of course you did. You went in the Great Pyramid King's Chamber, right?
King's Chamber, Queen's Chamber, and subterranean.
Mm-hmm. Did you lay in the box?
I did. I was going to ask that. I did. I toned in the box. We all
had
a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
And for people who don't know what toning is, it's just honestly like,
do it. Yeah. Like,
It's just like sounds. Mm-hmm. It's, so anyway, we all had an opportunity to lay in it. And did you too?
I had about almost 3 minutes alone in there. The Great Pyramid alleged King Chamber, totally alone. And it was like, that was a special moment for me, because I was like, I did it. I made it here. Like, I'm here. Like, I was literally like, I don't know if I pinched myself, but I remember thinking like pinch, like, holy shit, Jimmy, you made it. And not only did I make it, I'm there alone. And then I laid in the box by myself. And I remember just looking up and one of the things that stood out more than anything was the acoustics, that even my breath, the echoing, I've never experienced sound reverberation like that.
Right.
It was next level insane, because even if you're having a conversation, it's like echoing. I mean, like it's like, but like at a level I didn't even know could be possible. It was crazy. And I just knew I was in the presence of greatness. I remember looking around at all the precision of these huge 70-ton stone blocks that were fit together perfectly without any type of mortar, and just thinking to myself, like, what? I was just confused in there. I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's something else, and nothing about it. I didn't have any burial chamber vibe to it at all. And I know some people listening is like, oh, okay, who cares about your vibe? I'm like, it just wasn't. I don't believe it. I bet a limb on it. And if I end up losing an arm in the process, I would be utterly shocked. I would be shocked, because I genuinely believe, and it's not just a feeling. It's like, if you really research every argument you can hear about the pyramid on being a tomb and otherwise, or other theories as well that are alternative, yeah, I lean way against the burial thing. I'm like, no, it's something else. Because, okay, when you go down. So here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that when they think of the pyramids, they in their own minds, because they're not familiar with the layout, they assume or think that it was like this maze to hide the pharaoh, the tombs, and it's like this complicated structure. It isn't. You go down, and then you go up, and then you're there. Yeah. There's no like zigzag left and right. Where do I go from here? Like, no, like if this was meant to hide pharaohs, which they claim, I'm like, well, then all I did is go down and up, and I'm here. But that part aside, remember how you went, you go down, and then when you get into that, you go up, you first go down, then you go up into you get that grand gallery, we're about to go up. And you know how they have those wood planks that you walk up? It's kind of like stairs. You should see pictures of it without that wood there. It's a slide. It is I
was going to ask, is it like a tube almost? It's like, well, it's rounded, because the top is really, it's like a reverse, it's a pyramid inside, and there's almost like staging, into the ceiling.
Yes.
Looks like it's acoustically designed. Mm-hmm. It's not just flat. There's actually like purposeful edges and ridges that are symmetrical and go. It looks like it's meant for frequency, energy, acoustics, something like that.
I totally agree. No, it's not decoration. It's functional. And if you see it without that wood there, it's a different, you get I'll have to send you a picture. after, because like these pictures are very old. They're black and white because those stairs have been there forever, those planks. But when you see it without it, you get this, put it this way, the vibe I get by looking at it without those stairs there, you would think it funneled water. And one of the gentlemen I met on this, the first time I went, this guy is a brilliant, so he's a president of an air compression company in Canada, and he's a brilliant man. He's like, I would say high IQ, very nice guy as well. And he came there, you know, inclined to think, he's like, I think there's more to the story here, but I'm gonna come look. And he's an inventor like mind. And he had some very interesting thoughts. He's like, it feels like this place, or his sense is that it's meant to keep massive amounts of energy and just the very layout of itself. And he's like, when I look at different things that we do with compressors, just air, he's like, it's not irrational to suggest that if air and water had been moved through it, you could create insane amounts of pressure. And if you have high pressure, you can do anything with it. You can make, that's energy itself. Like even the Titanic, like, all right, so that's primitive, like it's a steam engine. That 50,000 tons of iron that they were pushing at, 20 plus miles an hour through the ocean, was done not only just through a bunch of built up pressure, through steam.
Through heat. They like throwing wood in the fire.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Like in the scene in Titanic, they're stoking the fire. They're like, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. Like, try to tell them to leave because it was so hot and steamy. And it's just, that heat and heat creating energy.
Yeah. Some smart people I met on these tours from all over the world that were there with open minds. And like some of them were even going there thinking, well, it's probably tombs, but let me just see. And like they left Egypt thinking like, what the, like they're like, oh my God, like something was happening here on earth that was really impressive. And it's beyond, it's just beyond. It's like, it's something, it's gone, but the mystery is there. And like to some people who I looked up to, let me speak for myself actually. I went there to Egypt and it confirmed what I was already highly suspicious of, which is that something spectacular was happening on earth, that humans were doing amazing things. But I'm like, I need to go and look, see with my own eyes, touch some things and kind of just get a feel before I just, then I'll know. And it confirmed it, whether it's the Assyrian,
for sure,
the Serapeum with those 100-ton boxes, the Great Pyramid and everything else. I'm like, okay.
But in the Great Pyramid, in the King's Chamber, the frequency was really high. So my opinion is that it was used as like energy centers. I just think they were energy centers. I think that perhaps they were used for healing. Perhaps they were used to somehow sort of charge up in some kind of ways, even to rebalance. And, maybe there was communication with other extraterrestrials. Maybe that's where it happened, because of the alignment with Orion's belt and the pyramids and the way that they use the stars, perhaps as sort of almost like a direction. It's like directions. It's like a map. It's like,
it could be a
land
ping.
here.
It could be like we're here. Yeah, ping, like
land here.
Come and get us. Hey, alien overlords that dropped us off and left us. Come back and get me.
Perhaps I'm ready. Although I say that and then I walk out at night to let the dogs out and I'm like, I'm ready. I'm not ready. I don't think so. Like the actual idea of it is like far, like if it was really going to happen is a little bit more scary. Although I believe that there'd be benevolent beings and they would probably make me feel comfortable. Like in the movie Contact, when Jodie Foster meets her dad on the beach and he looks like it's her dad, but it's really actually just an alien or an extraterrestrial. And they're like, we thought this would make it more comfortable for you. I'm sure they could shape shift into whatever would make us comfortable.